It's the journey, not the destination. It's the undefeated season. It's the championship. It's getting back to the playoffs and watching your rebuild really start to take its next step. It's starting your rebuild. It's building the things that give you hope for next year after this year didn't go the way you hoped it would. Every year, everyone in this league has their own road towards where they go, where they build, what they're trying to do in the season. And sometimes we get there and sometimes we don't. But it's definitely something that it's good to pause and reflect on as we're going through the process to kind of give ourselves a check of how we're doing. Um, and while that road can sometimes be lonely, um, I am lucky enough to have two other folks join me in the conversation on a regular basis. I wasn't sure if I missed the opportunity this week because they had gone and done other things, but we've got two folks who are going through their respective roads right now. We have the undefeated Eagles making a mess of the NFC right now. And we have Bill, who is the Broncos, who still in a playoff position, but selling things off, but might change his mind tomorrow. So everyone's got their own roads they're going on this one, and damn it if Bill doesn't blaze his own path.
Well, I do what I can. I technically hold the 8 seed right now.
For now. Again, and it's only going to take a comment from somebody in chat for you to say, screw it, I'm the 5 seed. But, you know, I think you and I are probably the most known for it in this league, and Panthers may be a close third, where it's a we're going one direction, we're going one direction, we're going one direction. Fuck it, change.
I would agree.
But there is no debating what direction the Philadelphia Eagles in our league are going. It is opening up as much space as he can between himself and the rest of the NFC East and trying to put a couple games between himself and Jeremy's Packers before the commish starts doing funny things and picking up wins here or there. But RJ, how does it feel to be the team to beat, and how are you doing after last week's shenanigans with that storm?
I'm doing fine as far as the storm. Luckily, nothing terrible happened to me or anything. I don't. These past 2 weeks have been uncomfortable, I guess. As far as playing, like they go down to the wire. Even Monday night last week, there was a possibility that Browns had two players in the secondary that could have, easily beaten me. So it feels good to be undefeated, but my road to the playoffs is not an easy one. So it will just continue to be difficult opponent after difficult opponent.
You'll be battle tested when you get there. Absolutely. Just a quick recap of where the divisions stand right now, and then we'll go into kind of where things went down last week. So when I talk about undefeated teams, well, RJ is the last of the undefeated in the NFC. We still do have two other undefeated teams in the AFC. The upstart Ravens, despite having within 14 and 8 points from the bottom dwellers in his division, is 10-0. And the New York Jets showing are not always imitating life at 10-0 in the AFC East with a commanding lead over the rest of his division mates. I don't think he's clinched yet, but I think next week, if he gets the results he needs, he might actually clinch that division before we get to the trade deadline, which, I mean, good for him. But considering where his bye weeks are, he needs that first round bye probably worse than just about anybody.
You should look at Jets' schedule for the rest of the year. He's not going to lose a game. He's got the Bills, the Cardinals, Pats, Rams, Niners, Vikings, Dolphins.
Must be nice.
Yeah, and the Ravens has just as much of a gauntlet as Eagles does. So,
I mean, we say that, but I think I did put not fear's the wrong word, and scare's probably the wrong word too. But I think the Titans might have looked my roster over a few more times than he was anticipating this week to say, does he have anywhere else that points are going to come from? So who knows what the Jets might have to face by the time they come to Minnesota.
yeah, trade deadline brings about a lot of different avenues.
This is true. So kind of going through last week's results. We'll start with the AFC East. They're matched up against the NFC West right now. Bills taking down the Cardinals by a healthy amount. The Rams doubling up or getting close to doubling up the Dolphins. 49ers having no real concern with the Patriots, but then definitely one of the games of the week was definitely the Jets and the Seahawks. To your point, Bill, that might have been his best chance at a loss this year. And he cleared him by a good 30 points. So Seahawks definitely no slouch in the NFC. I think even with maybe a lesser record than RJ or Jeremy, definitely a team to be feared there. But looks like another week of a 2-2 showing between the AFC East and NFC West. Any major surprise there?
No, I do kind of think the Seahawks' entire season is hinging on Deshaun Watson holding that job. But I don't know that it was surprising that the Jets beat him.
Which is interesting. I mean, it comes back to he does have a nice bank of assets to be able to move if he wanted to upgrade some of these positions to say have a higher scorer running back than Austin Eckler or a better scoring week than Sean Tucker. Have better performing receivers than Jerry Jeudy at this point. It's a roster of depth, but there's times to be cute and there's times to compete. And being tied with the 49ers in that division right now is I don't think where anybody had the Seahawks at this point in the season.
No.
I mean, I'll pull back up the preseason power ranks, but I don't think anybody had anyone else from the West other than the Seahawks as a playoff team or even interesting.
I don't know. But the Niners they're so good, and granted they are running into a huge problem with Nico and Hutchinson both being down. So that probably won't last much longer, but it was a good run while it lasted, and steal the wins where you can.
So I'm looking at the preseason power ranks. The 49ers graded out as really half and half between on the fence and maybe next year. I think Yeah, they ended up just at the top of the not your year range. The Rams were firmly in the not your year, and the Cardinals were down in my neck of the woods of not your year. So potential playoff team / fringe contenders where Seahawks was popping out in this one. And this has been a little bit more interesting, I think, than anyone had bargained for the NFC East. I'm sorry, the NFC West. But in the AFC East, we talked about the Jets. Dolphins are doing some fantastic tank work there. The Bills have been interesting because they actually came out before the season and flat out said, he's trying to rebuild, but he might do well enough in a couple of these games that he might hamper his rebuild as part of this process. And I think this is another one of those. I didn't expect him to drop enough points to be able to lose to the Cardinals necessarily here, but at 4-7 with certain teams that will not be named potentially jumping out of the playoff race here. I'm sorry, at 4-6, he's not out of the playoff conversation.
No, I mean, he's out. Like, everybody except for the North is out. Like, it's going to be Texans and Titans, and then it's going to be the North. Like, that's going to be the wild cards. Like, I mean, unless I come back and decide to start, like, trying again, I guess. but no, I mean, like, the Bills, that it's too much of a road to climb at this point. And I
two games.
It's not a great road. I have more confidence that Steelers will make the playoffs as the 5 seed than I do that the Bills will get in.
So the Bills are the Jets, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Niners, the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Pats. So yeah, those are 3 tough games that he probably has to pick up. So low probability.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that he's not trying. It's just that he needs to turn his "I'll trade" comment into action instead of just words.
That's true. That said, it is tough to find an even offer in this point. I think we identified that kind of preseason where a lot of consolidation of picks has already happened, and teams that are selling at this point are less ready to pivot off of players for other players. And again, the players that they're looking for, the assets they're looking for, are picks or rookies this year, and they're looking for specific sets. And you either have the ones who have come out and blown the doors off, in which case many of those teams aren't trying to move them, or they've come out and disappointed, but not to a point where people are ready to abandon ship. Like Trey Benson's a perfect example of this. And not trying to pick on the Panthers here, but James Conner's held on to that job. Trey Benson hasn't had the opportunity folks want. It's tough to say that he hasn't lived up to where he was picked because people were expecting he was going to have not quite a redshirt year, but a year where he was going to slowly take on that role, but it hasn't happened as fast as people have thought. So if it's following a path you were expecting, can you discount it? But at the same time, with others getting opportunity to step up, can you not drop the price on some of these? And again, I've made no effort to try and get Trey Benson from Panthers. I have no idea what his price is on Benson. I am not picking on Panthers as a potential trademark partner here. I'm just using that as an example of there's that asset. Trying to find the point to trade that asset is difficult in the current state of the NFL, I'd say.
No, I mean, it's very difficult to move anything. Like I've been trying to move pieces for just over a week, and the only like easy offer, easy negotiation was with RJ for Pickens plus. Everybody either doesn't have picks or they don't feel confident enough in their team. There's no urgency of, this is my shot. I got to take it. Everybody's just like, oh, my team's fake. And then Dolphins has all the picks, and he's not selling picks. So it's a rough time. You're basically stuck with what you got.
Well, I mean, and it requires teams to get creative. And in a lot of situations, creativity isn't always, smiled upon. If it's, hey, I can't get this pick, can I get a pick and this kind of player instead? It's that guy's a scrub. You shouldn't have done that. Or, oh my God, I can't believe he was willing to give up that piece. I mean, it definitely requires a much stronger stance of where your values are on some of these pieces than I'd say the market. And again, not necessarily being able to use a trade calculator for some of these things. It's being able to use your gut, how you value things, what you've seen, and how you think things are going to go going forward. So anyways, let's move on to a more productive set of matchups here. The marquee matchup that I think everyone was really waiting for here. The AFC North versus the NFC East. Ravens getting the runt of the litter in the Cowboys. Pretty easy win there. Bengals putting it on the Titans. I'm sorry, the Giants, not the Titans. RJ mentioned his tough road against the Browns, and then Commanders dropping it on the Steelers. Again, 2-2 between the divisions. I don't know if I would have predicted that outcome if someone had told me it was 2-2, but I'm having trouble kind of seeing another way it would have broken 2-2. I think, the Giants have set their team up to be a little bit more growing this year, and if he makes the playoffs, he makes the playoffs, but it's more about the long term. Eagles talked about his tough matchup, but then surprising Commanders, it's kind of a surprising situation to see the Steelers not getting to 200 and a couple of the other teams in the AFC North struggling to get above 225, where frankly I'd say that's kind of that floor you need to be doing on a weekly basis to be in contention, at least at the end of the year. And we're not at the end of the year yet. So please don't say that because you're hearing me saying you're not getting to 225 in week 6, that you're not going to win the league. But you're looking for signs at this point. And some of these teams that I would have expected to kind of be doing a little bit more just weren't there this weekend in a matchup they needed to have. Where it's kind of hey, is there really no sense of urgency to make a trade, or is it time to kind of say, if I'm going to separate myself, now's the time to do it?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I think that the scariest team out of this whole thing potentially could be Commanders if he just fucking gave in and moved his picks for players. He bought Henry and he bought Lockett. For what purpose did you buy them if you're not going to try and go all in and you're just going to sit there and let it go? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Picks are not that valuable. Like, the hit rate on rookies is so low, it's not worth it. It's crazy to me that he's not trying to be a buyer right now.
I think he is, but I think he's making a pivot similar to what RJ did before he tries to buy. I think moving moving off of Quiddy and getting a few more picks to make some deals with was a key piece. And I think he's also stuck in kind of that purgatory of, the easiest kind of move to make would be, okay, I'm going to add that first I just got from Saints to Jalen Polk. Now give me a Deebo Samuel.
I mean, there's a lot of pathways. He just has to be willing to go out and spend appropriate allocation of funds to do so. Like, I think it's the thing that we run into every year. People that are contenders, they either understand they have to pay market or above market rates because they know they have a shot, or they know it, but they're just not willing to do it because they're cheap. And I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. If you have the shot, take it. Like, you're the 5 seed right now. Just go.
It's there's a little bit of an issue with like this year in the sense of like, what's he gonna go by? So go and look at the top 32 receivers, and then tell me how many of them aren't on teams that are still in contention. Like, not a lot of them.
Sure.
And it's like that with a lot of the very important positions.
Sure.
Now, that's kind of just a general statement across the board for the league. With Commanders, it's a little bit different. He's taking a 0 at cornerback. We all know cornerback is a replaceable position. So that's kind of a choice on his part.
Says the guy who has Paulson Adebo.
He might be the MVP of the league.
You're welcome.
I do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm just going down from the top here. And some of this, like, Nico Collins is third in points per game. He's on IR. Atlanta, I think, is still going for it. So
who knows?
That's not it. Rashee Rice is 8. He's on IR. I'm still going down. I haven't gotten to a seller yet. Raiders with DK Metcalf at 26 is, I think, the first team I could see potentially wanting to pivot off. And that's not one of the pieces the Raiders are trying to trade. He wants to, I think, build around DK going forward. It's let me trade Mike Evans. Let me trade Lamar Jackson. Like, come get those for me. I'm not
going to go buy Mike Evans. What?
Well, he just got sold.
Yeah.
He went to Steelers. Was it earlier this week or last week? So, yeah, that's like, the big splashy stuff that like people normally would want to go out and buy, especially the people that are like sitting on firsts and seconds to an extent. Like, there's just not a lot of those things that you could comfortably purchase.
Well, does it have to be comfortable though? Like,
no,
is there a level where you have to be uncomfortable with the amount you're giving?
I mean, I bought George Pickens for a good amount, so like I'm probably not the one to ask.
I know. Like that's my point though. Is like, you're going for it. Even if you don't make it, you're not going to consider the attempt not worth it, right? Like that's my point. It's like, you can get creative. You just have to be willing to be uncomfortable with your decision. Like, go offer Lions fucking 4 firsts or whatever for Puka. Like, give him whatever it takes to get him off as he comes off IR. Like, do what you gotta do. Go find a way to get Cooper Kupp, whoever has him now. Like stuff like that. Like, it's not impossible. You just have to be willing to make that irresistible offer. Like, go to Colts, ask for Marvin Harrison. Hopefully, he doesn't give another 0 again. But like, my point is, like, you just have to go and do it. Like, you have to be active, and these contenders are just either lucking into it or not getting the results they want because nobody's willing to be discourse with them.
Yeah. Hey, I am not complaining. If everybody's willingness to improve is that low, then I will continue to, have my team and not feel too threatened.
Yeah.
I won't feel the urgency to go out and get a better RB2 because nobody else is going out and doing it.
Right.
Kevontae Turpin is outscoring Tyreek Hill this year. What the fuck is happening?
Tua got dead.
Yeah.
I understand, but fuck.
Bill and I had a
This is goddamn
conversation
game.
about the Dolphins receivers today. I think that'll work itself out, but that is an interesting and unique situation where, like, yeah, I don't know, the Cowboys suck enough to where teams kick off a lot against them.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And then Turpin just happens to be good enough to be the kick returner and the replacement for Brandon Cooks.
Right. Right. Oh,
All right.
man.
Speaking of the teams that suck, let's talk about the least look forward to divisional matchup this week. The NFC North and the AFC South. The high score from this matchup is a whopping 207 points. Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to the Texans. 207.46 points. He takes down the Bears by a comfortable margin. Titans drop me by about 80 points. The Lions squeak by the Colts by 17, and the Packers drop an extra 50 on the Jags. But 6 of the 8 teams in matchups this week of these divisions did not break 200. And the 2 that did so by such a small margin, it almost doesn't count. So, Bill, I get your point. Just from sheer schedule, these guys are going to be looking like playoff teams, and God help us if Titans gets there and McCaffrey comes back healthy and Baker keeps going the way he's going, and he could look like a real scary team if things kind of break the right way.
Sure.
Or, like, one of the things, and I think I mentioned this in a previous podcast, that I'm still trying to figure out because I'm thinking about it in other leagues. What's Christian McCaffrey worth right now?
A single first.
In our league, yes.
He's the same value as Tua right now on the hopes that he returns. Because, like, I don't know, 2 Achilles, are you even going to play again, like, ever?
That's what I mean. It's potentially league-changing upside in a player like this who was the no shit 101 this year for a lot of people. And now, I guess he's worth a first.
Yeah. I mean, 2
Holy
2s.
shit.
What?
No, that's what I'm reacting to, just that.
Oh, okay. I thought you saw something.
No.
No, like, it's crazy. And, like, it's one of those things where it's like, what do you do, right? Because you know that all you have to do is wait out the off season, and someone will give you what you want if you just wait out and be patient. But why not just try to flip him for something better? You know, like, do it that way. Who wants CMC? What tanking team wants CMC and is willing to give up? Like, I don't know. I can't have him back, so just using him as an example. Who wants to give up, like, J.K. Dobbins for CMC? Just so he has useful points. You know, do you take a loss potentially? But same thing with Tua. Same thing with anybody who goes down.
I don't think I have cap space, but I would definitely take on McCaffrey right now. But like I said, I don't think
I bet you could figure out a way to
cap
get
space.
Purdy. I bet you could figure out a way to flip Purdy for Baker and CMC plus.
If I was Titans, I would use it as something to take assets away from another competing team that is also looking to give them like gamble and give themselves a little bit of a push.
Yeah.
So, like a team would there are some teams that would love to get rid of a consistent RB2 and maybe like a young, productive like wide receiver 3, maybe like another piece for a CMC, and that's like who we should be targeting. Somebody that's like a fringe contender that's gonna ultimately give up their depth to get a piece that's gonna, in their hopes, push them over the top. But it's gonna fill out Titans roster, and like, from Titans perspective, that's what I would be looking to do.
Yeah, I mean,
Lions would be a fun team to do that with. I think
Yep.
something like McLaughlin and Puka in a trade for McCaffrey and something. I
Yeah.
don't know. I think
You're
there's a
not-
structure there.
you're not really getting Puka, but like, why not go to the Bills, go for Pacheco and pick a wide receiver, or get Njoku and Pacheco or something, or whatever.
I
You
think Mike's
Chico's
onto
not
something.
playing this season either.
I think Mike's onto something with the Lions, but I would actually say Olave because of the concussion, and because we don't know what's going to happen.
But I mean, like, do you want to just like hand the Texans the division by doing that?
How? No, you wouldn't be handing the Texans a division.
I don't know.
You'd be turning CMC, who is consistently a 0 for his team right now, into a Jaleel McLaughlin, who is at least putting up some type of points, an Olave who eventually will come back and put up points. And let's say, they find some other random thing. What does Titans need on defense? Does he need a safety or something? A random
He needs
cornerback.
corner, and he needs probably more DNs.
Everybody needs DN, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, he gets like one other guy that gives him, 4 more points than he normally scores every week, and Titans is in a far better position. And, if CMC comes back, then, Lions in this example actually has a real running back.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
again, I'm just kind of thinking in terms of the benchmarks that have helped in the past.
Yeah.
If you want to get out of the first round of the playoffs, you need to be looking at a 225 target.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get into the final four, you probably got to be clearing 250 on a regular weekly basis. And if you're going for the title, you got to have paths to 300, and not just a path. It's multiple paths to 300. You need situations where your quarterback, 2 or 3 guys on offense and 2 or 3 guys on defense blow up, and you are getting the 300. And right now, both these teams are right on path to make the playoffs, and then say thank you very much and start thinking about the offseason.
Would you go to Cowboys for Montgomery?
Depends on if
he would need to.
Cowboys
would have to be like
respond.
Parsons on Montgomery.
I mean, yeah, I know. I mean, he's like $40 million, but like it's worth considering, I would think. Or do you test the resolve of Commanders and go ask about Derrick Henry?
I mean, I think
these are a lot of really
Commanders
interesting
should.
questions.
Yeah, I would if I was the Henry owner. I'd move him. I'd take the profits and run at this point.
That's what I thought I did, and then I cost myself 4 fucking wins.
I mean, ultimately, when you get rid of JK, we'll know if it's a profit or not.
Right.
Right now, he's one of the few guys like consistently in the like teens, the low 20s, like touch every week. So
Yeah.
He's still a desirable piece.
There's options though.
Did we lose Mike?
Mike? Maybe. Well, I mean, I guess there's only 3 games left, right? Chiefs and Panthers, Raiders and Saints, and Chargers and Bucks, and I guess the only one worth talking about was Chiefs and Panthers, even though it was kind of lopsided.
Yeah, let me scroll down to it.
203 to 173.
Yeah, this was one of the few times that Panthers wasn't scoring in the like mid 200s, or 250s, I would say. So that was a little bit shocking to me. Both of them put up like a lower point total than I would have normally expected.
Yeah, I think the Rams were on bye, and he has a ton of Rams. But yeah, like it was interesting, and I do find it slightly funny that Chiefs would have won regardless of buying a quarterback or not this week, but Rodgers put him at 200. Yeah, this was like the game that mattered. Like it impacts the playoffs, and that's the only one that impacts it. But I don't know. I think maybe Raiders and Saints has more long-term impact, but it's just so weird to see these guys scoring so many points. I'm not used to tanking teams scoring over 100 so often.
Oh, well, I mean, Raiders is an unwillingly tanking team. Like his team is good. He just happens to come up against teams that aren't necessarily better, just happen to put up more points that week.
That is true.
Hi, Mike.
Sorry about that, guys. My
it's all
internet is spotty in this hotel. I've been just talking for the last 2 or 3 minutes and wondering why nobody's been chiming in here. So, again, my apologies to you guys, and my apologies to the pod. Did you guys move on to the next set of games, or?
Yeah, we were both disappointed in Chiefs and Panthers because of their lack of scoring this week. And then astonished by Saints and Raiders that they are both bad teams scoring in 150 or better.
So here's the thing that I thought I understood about the NFL schedule. That, look, I don't want to call into question the sheer amount of effort our commissions put in on our behalf. But I thought the way the schedule worked is when you went like for like with another division, you matched up against how they finished. So if you were first in your division, you played the first place team in that division. If you were second in that division, you played the second place team in that division, and so forth.
You do.
Broncos won the West last year, and the Buccaneers won the South last year. So why are the Buccaneers playing the Chargers and the Broncos playing the Falcons?
Because we play the entire division this year.
You got the entire division? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought this was just a single division matchup. I didn't think this was a...
No, the AFC West has the AFC North and the NFC South.
Okay, yeah, there's the Titans, there's the Jags, there's the Colts, there's the Texans for me. Okay. I was getting a little nervous there, like, oh shit, is there a problem in the schedule? So thank you for already knowing the answer to my question before I asked.
No problem.
But
no problem. Yeah, because
a brick-sized item just was protruding from my rear end, but I'm going to go ahead and stick a foot in my mouth instead. But nonetheless, yeah, a bit of a poor showing from a couple of teams in the West. Raiders continue to limp their way into some form of consideration here, but at 3-7, it's definitely time to pack it in. Chargers and Dolphins are building a commanding lead for the first overall pick at this point. I think barring a unforeseen win by one of them, I'm probably at best picking third. But hey, we've got a few weeks left. Anything can happen.
That is true.
I think you can close the gap.
I'm scoring over 100 too many weeks in a row here. I don't know. I need to move off some things that I don't think people are really excited or willing to jump after at the moment. But we'll see what happens when we get to the trade part of the conversation. But yeah, another situation where Falcons cleared 225 at 237. Buccaneers cleared 250 at 268. 6 other teams kind of under that spot. So I know it wasn't maybe the best week for fantasy performance last week, but people aren't going to be able to count on mediocrity for winning the playoffs. So hopefully some people start waking up with the NFL making trades. We'll get a few more real trades and blockbusters in here and see what happens. I do take my portion of the responsibility because Purdy and my cap hit are keeping me a bit on the sidelines right now, but I'm happy to help make the small things happen. That said, 16 trades have happened since I rattled off 40 in 5 minutes last week, so we'll take a little bit more time on each of them this week. Starting with the Steelers and Raiders on a pre-post pod trade. I'm taking credit for it because it apparently was agreed to before the pod, but got processed after. So everybody's a winner. Steelers picking up some pieces and listening to what we're saying loud and clear and going for it. Diami Brown, Mike Evans, Johnny Smith, and Tyreek Stevenson for Treylon Burks, Greg Dulcich, Alex Wright, Nephi Sewell, Teron Johnson. Bengals 4th and 25, the Jets 4th and 25, and then the Steelers 1st and 2nd in 26. So doubling down despite being 5 and 5, picking up a wide receiver, a rotational tight end. Diami has popped up and getting a few targets this year as sort of that third receiver in Washington. It's a nice set of ads there and ads that can kind of produce for him likely over the next couple of seasons. So not necessarily a rental just for this year. So I like it, and Raiders are starting to build up some pieces. Granted, I don't think they have their first in 26, but if it's with the Dolphins, they're probably not getting it back anyway. Or 25, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. I love the Mike Evans acquisition. I do wonder if it's worth moving Mike Evans instead of holding him if you're the Steelers, just because of like your place in your division right now. I know it's only been like a week. I get that, but it's just a curiosity.
I thought this was a solid win for the Steelers. I mean, his overall cost was a first and a second for starting tight end and aging but starting wide receiver, and then if I'm not mistaken, Tyreek Stevenson is a pretty productive corner, right?
He's quite good.
Yeah. So fantastic.
Yeah, not a bad deal. Like I said, I don't hate it. I just wonder if it would be better for him to move off of him, and maybe even especially after Shaheed is now getting surgery.
I mean, because of the Steelers standing in their division, like it's probably not an unreasonable thing.
Yeah,
but I think he has a possibility of even making, being in the playoff picture.
Oh yeah. I don't doubt his ability to get there. I'm just curious if it would be more beneficial to him long term, holding a 1-year receiver next year or getting a draft pick or trying.
I mean, if you could find somebody to buy it, but it's a matter of like who's actually going to pay up at this point.
Sure. I mean, that's a very productive wide receiver there.
All right. I mean, I think this next trade's kind of an interesting one too. Pacheco, Ben Sims, and Denver second next year for Tony Pollard and Darrell Taylor. It's the Bills trading probably the more productive back in Pollard for Pacheco in a second. Taylor's no slouch either. Ravens loading up while also shedding the contracted Darion Kendrick for the price of a fifth to the Colts. So these put together again, Steelers load up, Ravens load up.
I love this one. This is exactly the stuff I'm talking about. Overpay, or what might feel to you like overpaying, and get a guy that can help you now.
Yep. If you're one of the top teams, or you feel like you're one of the top teams, sure, you may want, because this is Dynasty, you may want to hold on to the productive players, but Pacheco makes complete sense. Get rid of him, find somebody else that's going to be productive. We don't know what he's going to be when he comes back. Somebody may have eaten into his production by that point, so sell him to a lesser team with the hopes of them holding on to him for, dynasty reasons.
Yeah.
Very true. And, Pacheco's on a bit of a running clock at the moment from his own contract. So, but the contract looks good from our perspective. Hopefully he gets to extend his career beyond 4 years. Broncos buying DeMarco Helms for a 26 fifth. Super expensive. But clearly Bengals really excited to get his 2026 fifth back.
I think he needed cap space.
Julius Brents and a fourth off my IR to the Saints for the Bengals third. Texans breaking down Aiden O'Connell to Jalen Naylor. The Browns 25 second and the Cardinals 25 fourth. I feel like, you probably wanted a first for O'Connell, but then this is getting creative to get close to that value without giving up the requisite pick that would represent it. So good on both teams for getting creative here.
Even so, I agree with everything that was said in the chat. This is the quarterback that you bought.
I wasn't complaining.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, but I'm like, this is who you decided you wanted so badly out of whatever options were out there. You thought Aiden O'Connell, who has no guarantee whatsoever to continue starting, was the right choice. Just rolling out Taysom Hill, Russell Wilson, and Aiden O'Connell. That makes no sense to me. I was certain whenever I announced I was selling quarterbacks that Browns would have come looking for one, and he didn't. It was very weird to me to sell to the goose. But he knows what's up. He knows exactly what's up with his team and his options and opportunities. This is just surprising. Aiden is not good.
I think we all had a fondness for Aiden O'Connell at some point over the offseason. But when we came to the realization that he had a head start to basically be the leader of that locker room, and, ultimately came out as, he wasn't the starter, wasn't the leader in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us lost any type of interest in him.
Yeah.
From a football perspective, nice to see him get an opportunity. I hope he does well. But yeah, from fantasy, he probably wasn't the guy that I'm going out to buy if I only have him and Taysom Hill.
Yeah. In a certain way, this feels like Texans somehow fleeced Browns. But I understand it from both sides in the end. It's still shocking that was the decision.
I mean, from Brown's perspective, like he does, like he has technically a starting quarterback for less than the cost of a first round pick. So
Yeah.
That's true, and I still have some belief in him. So we'll see what happens. It's a long season. Cooper Cup breaking down to Luke Musgrave, Bradley Chubb, and Tyler Newman, and flipping punters between the two of you. Shame on you.
everybody else was doing it. So.
You know what's interesting? So I didn't know that offer came through until like 3 minutes before kickoff on Sunday. And I was like, he knows better. Like, he knows there needs to be a fifth added to this. But I was just like, I'm not going to worry about this right now.
That was the only thing I could do to react to Browns buying a quarterback right before our matchup is like, oh, I guess I buy the Sunday night punter.
And like weirdly, it wouldn't have made any difference in your matchup. You would have just won by like less than a point.
Yeah. But I do agree with Mike's statement. There should have probably been a pick attached to it, but it seems like everybody else isn't adding picks.
I don't know what's going on with that this year.
No, it's wild, but I guess I'll participate too.
Right.
Well, it's the cool thing to do.
I guess I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. We're disappointed in ourselves. And no, as far as Cooper Cup goes, like weirdly, Panthers was the only one that came asking about him. And I told him I wanted to get a first for him, and he made it work in a non-pick way. And he had tried multiple times. I give him credit for it, and good for him. I hope he comes back and crushes it for you.
I thought it was a fantastic trade for both of you.
Yeah. But yeah. Musgrave going on IR definitely helped, and Newman looked pretty good on Monday Night Football. Then we get to this week. Kwity Paye for Brandon Graham, the Ravens 25 first, and the Steelers 25 second.
This just feels like he's selling instead of trying to compete.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a pivot though. Like Graham has 12 points the last two games he played, so he's clearly firmly part of that rotation.
Yeah, and I know that he's been
far
looking
better upside.
But ends. I get it, but it's just like these moves. Like, was there a point to this?
It's weird because the position of both of the teams, it doesn't feel right. Like Saints doesn't necessarily need to be a team buying right now.
Yeah, and that feels even more confusing. Is why is he buying so much stuff?
All right, but overall, like I might be a bit much for Kwity Paye, but I don't think it's like horrible. But I think it was a good move for Commanders, just because of the redundancy in points on his roster. Like he just has so many higher end defensive ends. He just doesn't need that.
I honestly thought the value was fine, like a late 1 and 2. Like that's totally fair.
But also it's like out of place in the sense that this should have been a trade that was done in April.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so you had enough time to move that first and second. Like now that first and second, like you're gonna panic purchase a wide receiver 3 and what you assume is a running back 2 that's realistically a fringe roster guy.
Probably.
I mean, I would like to, like I said, I would like to see him pursue a trade that upgrades from like a Polk or a McCaffrey with one of those picks to something that's a little bit more reliable right now. Like if you go with Luke McCaffrey in a first for Wandale Robinson, you're probably getting that right now. And again, say what you will about Wandale, he's wide receiver 32 right now.
20 targets in the last 3 games or 2 games or something like that.
Yeah,
And-
but that's all like Neighbors not being there too.
He was getting those kind of targets with Neighbors gone too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Not to this level, but
yeah, he consistently gets a couple more targets. Like he had 12 in week 1, like when Neighbors was, played just fine. And I think he had like 11 the last week that Neighbors played. So he does consistently get targeted. It's just, they have nothing other than receivers, so they have to force their subpar Daniel Jones to throw 50 times a game. So there's going to be at least 2 guys that get 10 targets each because they don't have enough talent at, pass catching positions to really justify throwing it that much.
Sure.
Tyrone Tracy would like a word with you.
Yeah, but how many targets did he get last week?
A shitload. It was fantastic.
It was, yeah.
He might have the job now.
I
But
think
that's
he
really
had
like-
that. I think he had the job when they thought he broke his leg in the preseason, and he was back like 2 days later. It just took time for everybody to realize that was his job.
So we've got a couple of quote blockbusters from earlier. Eric Murray for Fidarian Mathis and a fifth. Kalen Carson, Geno Stone for Quantez Stiggers and Isaiah Polamalu. A fourth for DeAndre Carter and DJ Davidson. Jesse Lakuta and Career Elam for Beal, Forbes, and a fifth. John Bates for Lenore. DJ Turner for a fourth. And Bub Means for Sion Vaki and the Broncos 24 fourth. Those get grouped together because none of them really knock socks off. They're maybe a couple small pivot moves to add some depth there, but nobody's changing their playoff destiny with any of those trades.
Yeah, I think Steelers made a good purchase with Bub Means. I know vocally Goose was salty, but I'd imagine there were a couple of people that weren't as vocal that were also salty about that because he could potentially be a good player down the line.
I mean, I got 2 offers. I countered back and forth on one, didn't turn into anything. I countered back and forth on this one, turned into something.
Yeah. Shame on everybody. Like anybody that wanted him and didn't act on it. Shame on them.
Yeah. I don't know if this got done before or after the news broke about Shaheed getting surgery, but I mean, Means is like the number 2 there right now.
It was after. I was aware that Shaheed was gonna have surgery before Means got traded.
Yeah, then that's a great.
So
Great.
I had made the counter before the news broke, but I think the news probably caused the deal to get accepted. Which I'm fine with. I like Vaki. I think I got bubbed by a taxi theft, so I'm fine getting a fourth for him.
Yeah.
He's got upside, so if he breaks for the Steelers, good for him. If nothing else, I make something back on my investment.
Yep, definitely a smart move when it's something that you get for free. Like you get another flyer in Vaki and you get a pick back. Nothing wrong with that. And now Steelers gets to hope that he plays well. And he could do well, but he also could be the wide receiver 4 there in 3 weeks when everybody's healthy.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the benefit. He gave up basically nothing.
Right. Just
I'm
one of
wrong.
those
I
players
gave up
that
I gave up the Saints fourth to get Means in the first place.
okay, well,
This was 3 months ago.
There you go.
you still profited a running back. So
Let's see on Vacky. So, oh well, shit happens.
he was a 4th round pick.
He
So
was.
Detroit does like him.
All right. So that is a recap. That is the standings. Those are some trades. And that is about an hour, which is a heck of a lot better of a run time than I was able to put up last week. So truly, your guys' commitment is necessary versus me just rambling on by myself for 40 minutes. So
You don't like solo pods, Mike?
look, I'm always happy to hear myself talk. Whether it's inside my own head, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's in front of a room full of people because I'm presenting, I have a fantastic voice and a lot of great things to say. But I think everyone else enjoys it a little bit more when it's not just me and, some of my half-baked opinions, especially when it comes to this space. So thank you for bringing some clarity, some levity, and some knowledge to the people here so that we all get a little bit better at this. And the only way to get better is to figure out, like I said, what path are you going down this year? Are you competing? Do you want to compete? Well, it's a little bit lonely to get out on your limb for some of those players that are going to make you better. And it's time to do that. If you're not serious about it, take a look and see if there's a way to profit from this. You don't think you have the guns to get through the wild card round and you want to load up one more year before you go for it. There are plenty of teams that should be buying right now, but they might not know you have stuff for sale. So put it on the trade bait. Come on. That's not enough. That's bragging at this point. That's shit talking between teams. That's shenanigans at this point. You know what you need to do to get out on the market if you're ready to sell something. So, as the old saying goes, get up off of your ass